Hey, this is Chris with President's Club. At this point, you've already been going through a couple of weeks of the house book, our core values. And so at this point, we're going to take a turn and go into a different book, take a detour for a couple of weeks on The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. So if you do not have that book, we highly recommend that you get a copy of it. But we're going to start going through, and that's what the book looks like. We're going to start going through some of the pages are there and just giving you the information on the psychology of selling. And so you should have with you a handout that has fill in the blanks with the notes so that you can take along with us and fill in those blanks. And so today, and we start the inner game of selling. Brian Tracy said this: success is not an accident. Failure is not an accident either. In fact, success is predictable. It leaves tracks. In other words, he's saying you choose either success or failure. Neither one's an accident. It's something that you choose. Robert Collier said this: visualize the thing that you want, see it, feel it, believe in it, make your mental blueprint, and begin to build. In the first chapter, what Brian Tracy is talking about, for the most part, is success is your mindset and the way you think and the decisions you make. And so today we're going to go over 7 points out of that first chapter. And the next 2 weeks, we'll finish up that first chapter. I want to give you some of the insights from Brian Tracy himself. So number one is the 80-20 rule in selling. The 80-20 rule in selling. The principle is this: the top 20% of salespeople make 80% of the money, and the bottom 80% of salespeople only make 20% of the money. And he simply says this: it's a choice. Which one are you in? Are you the 20% making 80% of the money? Are you the 80% only making 20% of the money? So whichever one it is, you just simply choose which one you want. And he says, move on over to the 20%. He says there's all this mystic thing, top producers, but the truth is, it's just they've decided to be in the 20% as opposed to the 80%. Number two is the winning edge. Here's what the winning edge is. It's the small differences in ability to lead to enormous differences in results. The whole premise of this section of the book is based off the fact that it's these small little things that make up the big differences in results. So oftentimes we look at somebody, you think of Megan Wood or Brent Swindell and these high numbers that they put out, and we think they must have all this crazy different abilities and whatever. But the truth is, it's just a small amount that is made up to look like a big difference in the results. The difference in top performers or mediocre performers is not a huge difference in ability or talent. Often it's just a few small things done consistently and done well over and over again. Many times he says you win by a nose. If you ever watch a horse race or a car race, and they win sometimes by just a small little piece of being ahead of the next person. But that small difference makes drastic changes in the amount of money they receive, the amount of fame they receive. And so you would think, looking at you see the person and all the money they're receiving, they must have really beat the other person by a lot. But the truth is, it was just that much. And so what he's saying is the winning edge is paying attention to it's only that much. Because see, if you think, the leader is 2 miles away from you, well then, of course, you feel like you can't win. But when you understand it's only that much, that's what winning edge is. In selling, you only have to be a little bit better and different in each of the key result areas of selling in order to accumulate extraordinary difference in income. See, we see going from 100,000 to 250,000 as a big number. Brian Tracy says it's not that big of a number. It's just a couple of small choices. Number three, success is mental. Harvard University did a study of 16,000 salespeople and found the basic qualities that determine success or failure in selling was all mental. It is estimated that the average person in general never uses more than 10% of his or her potential. That leaves 90% unused. That means that the average person working in the alliance is only using 10% of their potential because success is mental. In their mind, they have all these things stopping them from success, where if they could get those things eliminated, they can move forward. Number four, Brian Tracy says, follow the leaders, not the average people. No one is better than you or smarter than you. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what number they are on the leaderboard. No one is better than you or smarter than you. The only difference is they've discovered the secrets of the trade or they've made a commitment to outwork you. So if you can come to the realization that nobody in this business is more talented or better than you, they just know the secrets that you don't know, or they're willing to work in a way that you haven't been willing to work in, that means you can start to learn and you can commit and you can be just as good, if not better than them. So what he's saying is don't go around comparing yourself to the other average people. Compare yourself to the best of the best so that you can get better. Because those people that right now that are at the top, they are no different than you, other than they may be working harder or they may know more. And so if you know those are the two categories, you can easily begin to fix those things in your business. Number 5, mastering your self-concept. Mastering your self-concept. Self-concept is the bundle of beliefs that you have about yourself. It's the bundle of beliefs you have about yourself. It's the way you think about you, about what you perceive yourself to be. It's the way you see yourself and think about yourself. You always perform on the outside consistently with the self-concept of the inside. What that means is I always act out in public the way I see myself in private. And so your self-concept is either encouraging you to be successful or discouraging you from being successful. It all goes back to the way you see yourself. He says self-concept in selling. If you have a high self-concept in prospecting, you'll not have any problem getting on the phone. You'll not have any problem going to run appointments, because the way you see yourself gives you confidence that you're there and can make a difference. But if you have a low self-concept in prospecting, or if you have a low self-concept in selling, it leads to fear and anxiety that causes you to want to avoid those things. Have you ever noticed some of our leaders, it doesn't seem like any of the sales process seems to scare them. Like it's just like part of their world. See, when you have confidence, things like that become normal. And when things become normal, oftentimes they lose their fear. And it all leads back to your self-concept. If you see yourself as somebody that is courageous and confident and good at sales, then you start to act like somebody who's courageous and confident and good at sales, and you create that norm, which is success. Psychologists have found that you'll never earn more or less than, you'll never earn 10% more or less than your current self-concept. We like to say that there's all these outside sources that are affecting my income, but the truth is what they're saying is it's my inside source. It's the way that I think. It's my blueprint on the inside, and I'll never get 10% away from that blueprint until I choose to change. Number 6, change your comfort zone. Change your comfort zone. The only way you can increase your sales income is by expanding your comfort zone. The only way you can increase your sales income is by expanding your comfort zone, moving yourself past what you're comfortable with so that you can earn more. Here's what Brian Tracy says. There is usually very little difference in talent between the person who earns $50,000 per year and the one who earns $100,000 per year. The only difference is that one has settled at a lower level while the other has refused to settle for less than $100,000. That's interesting to read, to think about. One person, he says, has settled for $50,000 and they have the same talents and abilities as the person making $100,000. It all has to go back to their choice, what they've decided. He says you need to reset your financial thermostat. We know the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. Thermometer just tells the temperature, a thermostat adjusts the temperature. And so like in your home tonight, if you are cold, you go over to the thermostat and you adjust it to make yourself comfortable. If you're hot, you adjust it to make yourself comfortable. Here's what Brian Tracy says. You go inside of yourself and you adjust your internal your financial thermostat based on what you're comfortable with. So if you're making more money than what you're comfortable with and the work's more than you're comfortable with, you go inside and you adjust your financial thermostat to lower your income. You might start spending money like crazy on stuff you don't need because you're trying to adjust your financial thermostat. Or if your income drops lower than what you're used to and you start to freak out, you go and adjust your financial thermostat to increase it. So once you realize that there's just a knob on the inside of you that's choosing whether hot or cold, more or less, then you can now adjust it and take control of it to move yourself out of your comfort zone. And number 7 is change your mind. To increase your income, you must achieve your financial goals in your mind before you can achieve them in reality. You must achieve your financial goals in here before you can achieve them out in the world. That means you just have to decide in your mind what you're going to do and stop letting there be limiting behaviors, limiting beliefs that are hindering you from having the success that you're supposed to have. It's change your mind. Imagine yourself as if you were already the kind of person you want to be, earning the kind of money you want to earn. If you can see yourself already as that person, then your behaviors in sales will start to match it. There's nothing different between Paul Roberts or Stephen Davies than you. There's nothing different between Mike Leventovich or Megan Wood. There's nothing different between Jason and Tony Carey than you, other than their financial thermostat changing their mind and making decisions of what they want. So stop comparing yourself to the average people. Compare yourself to these people and ask yourself the question, what do they know that I don't know? And what are they willing to do that I'm not willing to do? Because if you can learn those two things, you can be just as good as they are in sales, because being good at sales has more to do with your mindset than anything else. Because as he said, your self-concept produces in you this feeling of confidence that says, I can make the dials, I can go see the people, I can do this, and cause you to move forward. Here's some action exercises. Number 1, decide today to become a totally confident, high self-esteem salesperson. Say over and over again to yourself, I like myself. I like myself. If you don't like yourself, you're going to have a hard time getting other people to buy from you. So tell yourself over and over again. Number 2, visualize yourself continually as the very best in your business. The person you see is the person you will be. So stop looking at other people thinking they're just better than me. They're not better than you. See yourself as better than them, and then you'll produce. What's up, Mac? See yourself as better than them, and you'll start being better than them, because Brian Tracy says it has more to do in your mindset. And then number 3, resolve in advance that no matter what happens, you will never give up, that failure is not an option, that quitting is not in it for you, that no matter what happens, you're going to be the best version of yourself that you can be. So that's our notes from the Inner Game of Selling Part 1. Next week, you'll be going through the second piece, which some pretty interesting stuff. You can read ahead in the Psychology of Selling if you would like to, but we'll see you next week. Thank you for jumping on.